I've been thinking about how many new emulation devices come out every year and how quickly some people upgrade from device to device. I'm no exception. I upgraded from using personal handhelds like this Vita and the 3DS to buying dedicated emulation handhelds like the very device we're going to be discussing in this video. My very first device I purchased was roughly 2.5-ish years ago at this point. It was the very cool Anbernic RG351M. And this device comes from a very different time frame, a different time for all emulation handhelds. It was still a little bit more underground. It was still a little bit more illegal feeling than it is today. Not everybody was talking about the next Miu device. This was predating so many of our favorite handhelds we've had so far. This device originally came out 4 years ago at this point. The 351M came in many different variants, some in a 16:9 form factor, some with a 4:3, and some with a 3:4 display. It really depended on which variety you really wanted, some with and without analog sticks. It came in plenty of different varieties that you can really find the perfect one that suited you best. But for me personally, I landed on the 351M. I liked the 16:9-ish form factor of the display and the all aluminum build because I love me a nice high quality device. And that goes to show why I even like devices like the GK8 Pixel 2. That device is also made out of aluminum and it feels very similar in terms of overall build quality. I will quickly run through the specs. It uses a 3.5-inch 320 by 480 IPS type display. It has, for the CPU, the RK3326 quad-core CPU. It has 1 gig of DDR3L memory, 64 gigabytes of storage, has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and you can download all your stuff to it over the microSD card. It has 2 Type-C ports, one capable of display, the other not. It has all of the possible buttons you need, even triggers, but they are the landscape style, so they're sort of all in the same row. But at this point, I've gotten used to that. But when I first got this device, I was unhappy about that. Overall, pretty standard fare for the time. We even still see that RK3326 CPU in many other handhelds to this day. It was capable of all the way up to N64, PS1, and Nintendo DS level of performance. Though, initially with the stock firmware, it was pretty hit or miss when it comes to overall performance in some of those systems. PS1 ran pretty flawlessly, but N64 really was hit and miss. Some games ran pretty well, others not so much. But the community really rallied around this handheld. This was in the before times where Anbernic was actually really open to third-party firmwares. Nowadays, they're a little bit more constrictive, but at the time, this device had just a massive amount of third-party firmware options. I eventually landed on 351 Elec and eventually moved on to 351 Amber Elec or something like that because of 351 Elec's eventual deprecation. The custom firmware is added to the overall experience, making the UI just massively better, and as well as improving performance in certain titles. It made playing most PSP games run a lot better opposed to the stock firmware. I'm not saying 100% of the PSP library ran great, but for me, a lot of my favorite games ran significantly better, like Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. This was one of Anbernic's first truly viral handhelds. I remember at the time seeing so many videos come out talking about this handheld and essentially stating that this was one of the best handhelds at the time. But for the price, I would argue that it has aged quite poorly in that aspect. When this first came out, it was worth about $150, but nowadays you can find it for about $120 to $100, and there's just so many better options nowadays that it really hasn't held up very well. But if you still have this device and you weren't planning on upgrading, you are left with a pretty solid handheld with a massive amount of third-party options to help get the most out of this device. Overall, I honestly think this device has aged quite well if you weren't comparing it to many other handhelds out there. It is still a great handheld, and if all you wanted was a device to play PS1 games or your classic library of N64 and Super Nintendo and all your classic systems, it runs decently well, plays the majority of them flawlessly, so most people probably really wouldn't need a reason to upgrade from this, unless there was some need for more performance or the form factor just wasn't really yours in the first place. It has aged poorly in terms of its overall price value because there have since then many more handhelds have come out that are aiming at the same level of performance but shooting for a much lower price point. More modern handhelds like the Anbernic RG351M, which is a very similar handheld by concept and design. It is very similar. It has the same 3.5-inch screen. It has a very similar form factor for its landscape design, but it just comes in plastic and it's like half the price of this device. So if you wanted a more modern equivalent, just get the 35XXH. It is fundamentally the same handheld, slightly better performance, and generally more available. I would say the one thing this device has on top of all those newer handhelds is that full aluminum build. It truly feels incredibly high quality, and it just feels amazing in the hand. The rubber stoppers on the back is something that I miss a lot as well. It felt fantastic in the hand, and at the time was an amazing overall experience, something that you generally didn't see on many other emulation handhelds, because the most popular handhelds at the time were the Pocket Go's, which sounds like a different handheld, but there were handhelds called Pocket Go's that weren't particularly great, and they made like 2 or 3 of them, and they just haven't made a new one since, or just completely missed it, because so many handhelds both use Pocket and Go for their naming schemes. It gets quite confusing, but those were some of the most popular handhelds because they fit within that $50 to under $100 price point. This was a premium handheld for a time where these handhelds were just getting started, and it remains one of my favorite handhelds purely for the nostalgia. But nowadays I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but if you have one of these and you're happy, I don't see any reason why you should upgrade from this device in the first place, because it is still overall in terms of performance holds up quite well. But if you were looking to get something like this today, you're better off getting something more modern like the 35XXH, which is its most similar modern counterpart. I would love to hear what you guys think about this down below. Do you still use your 351M constantly, or have you since upgraded from it? And if you did upgrade from it, what did you upgrade to? I would love to hear what you guys think about this down below. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All the other social media garbage down below. And last but not least, have a wonderful day.